Hey everyone, Ryan here. So I wanted to take some time to go over what it takes to get started with drums. I think it's a really awesome hobby to have, and it is incredibly therapeutic, any kind of music playing really. But I think there is a lot of stuff that gets in the way of getting started in the first place, and most people find this a little bit inaccessible, I think. That's part of the reason I wanted to start the channel in the first place, was just realizing in my own process of getting set up for covers and stuff how complicated some of this stuff gets. That is beyond what I'm going to be talking about right now, but the general principle still applies, that there's a lot of knowledge that's sort of assumed for you, where you're supposed to already know what this or that means, where you might not necessarily know what all the different hardware on a drum kit is, or what you even need in the first place, and you end up buying either the wrong thing, or you buy something and realize you still need more. All that kind of stuff comes up really frequently, and I think there are some things that can be done to prevent it right off the gate. So, first off, I just wanted to start by talking about why you should get started with drums, which, I mean, I think everybody should. Excuse my dog. She is very cute and having a great time stretching right now. But back to the point. It's obviously something that I enjoy, but I think it's something that anybody can enjoy. Most people have a natural sense of rhythm, and even if you don't, it's something that you can learn. So the hobby itself is extremely therapeutic because it gives you an outlet, just like any other kind of music making does. And it gives you an opportunity to be expressive and creative in a way that it's kind of hard to outside of music. So those are some reasons that I think you should get started. I also think it's something that's pretty accessible once you do get into it, and a community that is generally pretty welcoming. There's a lot of having your back in the music world, and being able to speak with other musicians on their level, to communicate both through music and just through language in general. It feels awesome. It feels great to be able to connect with people on that level, and it's something you never understand until you actually get into it. So I think there's a lot of reasons to get started, but I'm assuming if you clicked on the video in the first place, you already kind of have an idea that you want to. So I'm going to go ahead and get into some other stuff. In this video, I'm going to be exploring stuff about hardware and showing you what all the basic components of a drum set are and how it works. I'm also going to give you some advice on shopping and figuring out what you need, and figure out what it is at the start that you're actually going to want. So I'm going to switch formats here and start showing you some stuff on my screen. First off, I'm just going to go over the basics, and I'm going to show you what a drum kit is. I know, you think you know it probably, but I'm sure there's some stuff that is missed, and that's what I'm getting into with the, you're going to find out that there's things you wish you knew that you don't. And watching this video will hopefully clarify some of those things ahead of time for you. So I'm going to go ahead and get into it. Let me switch over here and we'll get started. Alright, so let's get into it. I'm going to start off by showing you what just a drum set looks like. This is just a free virtual drum set I looked up. It has no significance really. It says this is Travis Barker's setup. It's, you'll see what it sounds like, but it's alright. The main point of this is just to show you what the different components are. So I will start very basic. What the drums are. This is your snare drum. This is your rack tom. There can be two. They are noted as rack toms because they are either mounted on the bass drum here, or they are mounted on a cymbal and then angled towards just above the bass drum. So in this case there's just one, sometimes there's two. I run with two. Now you can see what I mean. It's not great sounding, but it is still a guide on what this looks like. And then you have your floor tom. So the floor tom is noted as a floor tom because you'll see it rests on the floor. The rack toms tend to run by size somewhere around 10 inches to like maybe 12 inches, and then like 16 on the floor. So what you end up with is higher pitched, lower pitched, and then even lower pitched. Then you have your bass drum, the base of your beat. Over here is a second snare drum. This is definitely optional, but I just figured I'd point it out because it is here. Cymbals, hi-hat. This is a splash. I'll just say what it is because it's here again. It's not going to be on a basic kit, so you shouldn't really worry about it. We have a crasher, left crash cymbal, a ride cymbal, another crash, and what's known as a china. This is an effects cymbal, so it gives you this really nice trashy, washy sound. I really like it. It's meant generally for heavier music. That's why it's there. So the reason I'm pointing this all out is because you need to understand what the basic components are of a drum set are and what they're for. So your bass drum, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's the pulse. You can follow the bass player, so the bass player might be playing doom da doom 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 da doom doom, and you can follow along. Your primary timekeepers are the hi-hat and the snare drum. The hi-hat is usually subdividing the beat. I'm going to go over that in another video. You don't need to worry about what it means now, but it's helping to keep time. So 1, 2, 3, 4. The snare drum in most rock beats is generally placed on the 2 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Of course, in this case, the hi-hat's going all 4, but I can only click so many times. So those are your beat keepers. You could make a drum set that's just bass drum, snare, hi-hat. You don't need any of the other fancy stuff. That's all just for color, basically. And it gets more advanced the more you go. But those are what the basic components of the drum set are. You can also make your beat with your ride cymbal. A lot of times what happens is in the verse of a song, it's hi-hat because it's a little bit quieter. And then in the chorus, when it opens up and becomes louder, you get ride. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So the 2 and 4 on the snare drum is just indicating where the beat is so that the band could follow along. You can get what's called 4 on the floor, 1, 2, 3, 4 out of the bass drum. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Got it? Just the general idea. So this is just for the purpose of showing you what all the different instruments are in a drum kit. And I'm going to briefly go over what hardware is. You got your bass pedal. Usually does not come with a shell pack. Please note that when you're purchasing. You have your drum throne. You have your snare stand. Sometimes will come with, sometimes won't. Note that as well. Your hi-hat stand. Again, sometimes will come with, sometimes won't. Then you have cymbal stands, which are pretty much interchangeable, but notice the real only main difference is the boom arm. And that should be a familiar term, no matter what. So, now I'm going to move on to looking at different drum sets and give you some help in getting started with purchasing. Alright, now that I've shown you what the different parts of a drum set are, I want to go over some options. So, there's one thing I really want to note up front. When you're getting started out, don't worry about getting expensive equipment. Because until you know what you're doing, it's not really going to make much of a difference. Start cheap and learn to make cheap sound good. And then you can upgrade. So I've gone ahead and gone to Sweetwater. This is just generally my choice of retailer for purchasing equipment. That's not an endorsement. It's just my general use. So I've set the price range $200 to $300, $300 to $500. In about that range, you're going to find most starter kits. It's hard to find stuff for cheaper that's new. You might be able to find some stuff that's used, and it's probably worth your while to take a look at places like Craigslist, Facebook Marketplace, etc. So, we have a lot of different kits here, you'll see. And you can note the differences in the equipment. there's one thing that you need to note. Most of the time, when you're buying something like this, see these words, shell pack. Shell pack. Sometimes it says complete drum set. That means it's going to come with the cymbals as well as the stands. Shell pack means it's going to come with the drums, and just the drums. Meaning you will have to purchase cymbals and stands separately. Very important to note. Usually when you're buying a complete set, they're going to give you really cheap cymbals along with it. For your purposes, getting started out, that's completely fine. I would probably recommend going with something like that. So you have a lot of different options here. I would just go ahead, go to a retailer, and peruse in this general price range. Because that's where you're going to find equipment that's decent, still sounds decent, and isn't going to break the bank. And usually you'll find some really good options. So, beyond that, I would recommend looking at cymbal packs if you aren't getting a complete drum set up front. I would recommend very specifically this set. $350. I know that sounds like a lot, but what you get is this pack of low volume cymbals, which are fantastic. I love them. They reduce sound by just a ton, so you can practice. You can practice pretty much anywhere. I highly recommend them. I used them myself, and they really do work, and they sound good. So it comes with a hi-hat set, a crash, and a ride. And also, please again note, no hardware. You will have to purchase boom stands for your cymbals, as well as a hi-hat stand if you don't already have it. Note that. It also comes with these, which are noise silencing heads, or noise reducing heads, I should say, which serve the same purpose. They make it quite a bit quieter, which is really, really nice for your practice space. I recommend this, but it's expensive. If you have the luxury of being able to play a little bit louder, you'll see you've got a lot of good options here for pretty cheap. You know, you're getting 5 cymbals here for $163. Wuhan is, not the best, but that's not really a big deal right now, because what you're looking for is just something that's playable. And they are. They're totally playable. So, take a look and peruse. You really want to make sure you end up with at least a hi-hat. So don't go and buy a set that's all crash cymbals or something like that. At least a hi-hat, probably a ride. Most of the time you'll find a set of 3 hi-hat, crash, and ride. And that's a great starting point. Just make sure that you get the hardware for it, for which you will need 2 boom stands. And you can get them relatively cheap, maybe like $20-30 from like Gibraltar or PDP. And you can find them on sites like this. But you will also need a hi-hat stand, remember. Beyond that, I would recommend getting yourself a practice pad. I'm going to show you on mine in a second why it's important. I'm just showing you here what it is. And then there is one thing that you need to know about. It's called the drum key. So this little guy is hugely important. This is how you tune and set up your drums. Most drum kits come with one. Shell pack, what have you. Most of the time they're going to come with one. It'll be a cheaper one like this, $3, not bad. But it is pretty much the only tool that's built to turn the lug nuts on a drum. So you can't replace heads, you can't tune, which is something that you should start learning, but not until you get the hang of what a drum set is and feels like. So this is another piece of hardware that you need to know about ahead of time. So it's another thing you want to think about. Alongside sticks, your drum throne, your cymbal stands, your hi-hat stand, maybe your snare stand, depending. All that stuff. You also have the option of purchasing an electronic kit. I'm a fan of mine, which is a Millenium. So I am going to recommend them because they're cheap. They come from Thomann, which is a UK service. They shipped pretty fast for me. I got it in about a week. And if you've heard of some drum companies that make electronic drum kits, maybe you've heard of Alesis. This comes from the same factory where they make Alesis. It's just, it doesn't have the brand on it. So these are essentially the same drums, just for cheaper. So you notice you can get a full kit that comes with everything you need. I mean, you're going to need headphones to plug into it to be able to hear it, but it comes with everything you need. $200, $250, and here's $315, and it comes with headset as well as a drum throne as well as drumsticks. So electronic drum kits can be a really good option. I personally prefer an acoustic kit, but it is a matter of preference. An electronic kit is a great way to learn because the module, that's this guy, and this is just a higher quality and more loaded version of the module that's going to come with any electronic kit that you purchase. The kit comes loaded with a bunch of different sounds, usually some pre-programmed kits, as well as some pre-programmed songs and stuff like that. Gives you a great opportunity to mess around with different sounds, learn about what they are and how they function, and what their use is. Learn what you like. So, I highly recommend them. Like I said, I have a Millenium. I have a Millenium MPS 850. It's a fantastic drum set, and it's really been suiting me very well. I have it hooked up so that I can use a virtual instrument and use it as a MIDI controller. I will go through what all that means. I know that sounds really foreign right now, but it's something that you might be interested in down the line, and having an electronic drum kit opens you up to that. So, now, after I've gone through this, I am going to go ahead and switch over and show you some stuff on the practice pad, why it's a useful tool, especially when you're getting started. So we'll close out here, and I'll shift over. Alright, so I am switching over to the practice pad really briefly. I just want to show you what it sounds like. This is a great tool for practicing your fundamentals. So you can set a metronome and just 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Practice your sticking. 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's all different kinds of rudiments and basic exercises, a lot of which I'm going to be going over, that you can check out and work on with a practice pad. So this is a great starting tool before you even get a drum set. Super cheap, 30-40 bucks. It's really responsive. You can see how well it bounces. You see that? Super responsive. Fantastic for messing around with your rudiments and getting the basics down. I would recommend downloading a metronome app. Most of them are free. Soundcore Set is the one I use, just from whatever app store you have on your phone. And then you set it to like a neutral time, like 120 beats per minute. And you just drum along. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. And nail that in, because you really need to be able to play to a pulse. And that starts with working on your fundamentals here on the practice pad. Alright, I think that's going to do it for this video. There's a lot more in the basic series, so I hope you continue to check those out. I am trying to be very thorough, so if there's something I missed, if there's questions you still have, if there's something that you don't understand or that I explained poorly, or if you got yourself a drum set and you're just sitting there and looking at this thing like, what do I do? Let me know. My goal here is to make it as accessible as possible. That's the reason I started this. So if it's not, then I'm not doing my job, and I want to fix that. So please give me feedback on that. I'm happy to explain whatever, whether it's in a one-on-one or whether it's through one of these videos. I want as many people as possible to be able to play drums because it is so fantastic as a hobby, and just creating in general is so important for us. It's super therapeutic, and it helps us communicate with each other, and I think that's very important. So, thank you very much for watching. I hope you check out the rest of the series, and I will see you guys very soon.